How long are we going for, chap?
45.
Bang. Done.
Right. Hello, everyone. And it's late, but it doesn't matter because we've got a bunch of stuff to talk about the Qatar GP, which somehow became miles more interesting than it had any right to be. And we can thank one team and one team only for that. But I'm not going to talk to you about this on my own. How could I? How could I possibly do this just on my own? Cameron, how nice to see you.
Long time no see, Shez. Do you know what I mean? You've been missing, chap. Where have you been all this time? I mean, it would be nice if you could come on my channel and like talk about driver ratings or something at some point in a not too distant. Do you know what I mean? Repay the favour somehow, Shez. What are we doing here?
I'll have to put it in the calendar, Cameron. Yeah, no worries. But right now, thank you for being here. As you can see, everybody is massively excited. I think they're sometimes excited to see me, but for you, I mean, please at least give them a gentle bow.
What do you mean? I don't understand.
I don't know.
Precise with your language, Shez. What are you talking about?
More precise with my language. I can't be any more precise than that. Anyway, let's get on with this. McLaren dropped the biggest clanger I think I've seen at any point this weekend. Was it on purpose? Cameron, that's my question to you.
You couldn't possibly be alluding to favouritism, could you, Shez? Is that what you're referring to here, mate? Like,
I don't even know what the word favourite means. What is that? What's going on? What is going on over at McLaren? If it isn't favouritism, what is going on?
Well, you'll be aware as a F1 scholar yourself, Shez, and a studier of all things linguistics, that one should never attribute to malice that which one can attribute to stupidity, and this is proof positive. This is the example that proves all of the aforementioned beyond reasonable doubt. Right, McLaren have been daft all season long, as near as makes their difference. They're trying desperately at this point to seize defeat from the maws no jaws of victory, sir. Pit them. You've got a mandatory 2-stop. What are you doing here? You know the 25-lap rule. If you have the opportunity, therefore, to get yourself a cheeky discounted pit stop, then why would you not, unless you are stupid? It explains everything, Shez. It's no more difficult or complicated than that, is it? They are daft, and they've been daft all season long. Do you want to win a championship? Do you want to really win a championship? Are you prepared, McLaren, Zach Brown, Andreas Stella, to pay the championship, the victory tax, do the things requisite, no necessary to win a championship? Therefore, it cannot be kumbaya and united colours of Benetton and philanthropic endeavour. Sometimes you've got to make some decisions, Shez. You can't bake a cake without smashing some eggs. What are we doing? I thought this is not Fermat's last theorem, Shez. I think for me, this is basics. My son could do this, and he's for Pete's sake. Pit them. But no, they're too keen to bloody egalitarianism above all, isn't it, Shez? Carry on, mate. If I keep barking up this bloody egalitarian tree, at some point the racing gods will turn their back on them and allow a Maximilian Verstappen to creep into the Drivers' Championship door, just as did Kimi Räikkönen in 2007. But I forget, Shez, that Zach Brown said he doesn't mind that, does he? That he's well prepared for that to happen. He'd rather that happen than play favourites. Of course, Zach Brown, please advise.
So this is the problem, that lest we lose sight of what Cameron is eulogising about, and I think I've lost count of the number of little English aphorisms you've stuck in there. There were a lot, but I think apropos, what happened? Start the race. We all knew that they were going to have to do a maximum of 25 laps on any given set of tyres. There are 57 laps in a race. Half of 50 is 25, and there was a safety car on lap 7. So if you pitted on lap 7, when there was a safety car, you get a cheap-ass stop, and you only have to have one more stop till the end of the race. So McLaren, in an act of what I can only characterise as extreme charity, decided not to pit either of their cars on lap 7 under that safety car, allowed everybody else on the grid to do it. evoking images of Hungary 2021 with Lewis Hamilton alone on the grid, and decided to leave their cars out and gave themselves the biggest job possible, which they could not possibly fulfill, and they didn't. But Cameron, you talk about stupidity. I would argue that the stupidity was in the egalitarianism, in the fact that they have gone hell-bent for leather this entire season to try and be somehow equal between these two drivers, to the point where Zak Brown, quote, has said, I would rather Max Verstappen wins this championship than we show any sign of unfairness to our two drivers. And if you're going to say that it's an act of incompetence to not bring Oscar Piastri in, and you realise that McLaren cannot really be stupid, then the only answer as to why they didn't bring Oscar Piastri in is because it would have looked unfair to bring him in and not bring in Lando Norris, and therefore they disadvantaged their lead driver and lost him a race win just so they could look like they weren't being unfair. Am I wrong?
I think you're probably right. If past this prologue, Shez, you're probably barking at the right tree here, and rarely are you a million miles away.
It's not true.
I think the point though, the pertinent point here is, Shez, like how very stupid. This is Shakespearean levels of false seeming to prioritize what things look like as versus what they are. What do we do? Is this really F1? I think they deserve to do the championship, and this is what's happening in real time, right? That so many F1 fans are starting to do the desperate for Max Verstappen to put McLaren in their play. I'm telling you, chap, I don't know. Listen, I don't know why they're doing it. I just think it's not. It probably has something to do with the fact that they didn't want to be seen in inverted commas to be prioritising one of their two drivers. Probably. We'll never know for sure, chap. But
they're never going to admit to that, though, are they? And they haven't. They've come out and said, look, we expected at least some people to stay out and do the same thing that we did, and we didn't want to get caught in traffic. And then the other side of that was, well, we thought we had enough pace in the car to do it. And they were saying everything but what was blatantly obvious. They just didn't want to look like they disadvantaged the championship leader and advantage Oscar Piastri, but I do want to just point out how dumb that was, because look, it's one thing to not disadvantage Lando Norris, but it's another thing to basically open the church doors wide open and say, please enter Max Verstappen and take what you want from the font, because essentially what they did was they inverted the championship order to allow Max in. If you look at what the points were at the end of this race, given what actually happened, Lando finishes on 408. Fortuitously, I would say, because Kimi Antonelli fell off the road, not for him, but let him through. I don't want to go down that route. And Max is now, 12 points behind, with Oscar now 16 points behind. Like, what the hell? Let's have a look what would have happened if this was an alternate reality where they had pitted Oscar and just left Lando to deal with the consequences of qualifying badly. His fault. If they do that, Oscar wins the race, most likely. Max comes in second, most likely, and Lando still finishes fourth. And I'm being generous there because Kimi still lets him through. Doesn't let him through. Falls off the road. I forget which. In that situation, Lando's on 408. Oscar Piastri is now on 399 points. And Max Verstappen is a further 10 points behind. When Zak Brown says we would rather see Max win than not be fair to our drivers, I didn't think he meant he was actually going to give Max Verstappen the championship. Who can be that silly?
Mate, it's chaos, Shez. It is chaos. beggars belief, mate. I didn't think that Zach Brown had. To be fair, I'd expound on the point that you just made, Shez. I understand why Zach would say something like that. That's the exam question or answer even. But what I didn't think is that he'd deliver upon it so shortly thereafter. What a clown show. And what's worse, Shez, in all this, the pertinent, but the irony shouldn't be lost on us that in trying to do all this bloody pit, you seen how many interviews he's given out over the last 3 weeks beyond the grid F1 net. Like he's been on everything talking about egalitarianism.
Well, I think he was trying to promote his book, wasn't he?
Mate, I think before that it was all about 7/10ths or whatever the book's called. But over the past couple of weeks, I keep seeing the dude and Andreas Stella talking about equal rights and philanthropic endeavour. And we've got two young, hungry drivers, and if it needs to be 2007, then let it be. And rules of engagement and that's all that I hear this dude talking. Over the last 2 to 3 weeks, they've almost overcompensated for this perception that Lando Norris is the prodigal son and they want him to win. They've almost overcompensated, and overcompensation has been loud, Shez. But I'm just like, yeah, and still, you just, I don't know, chap. I don't know if that can exist in the same space, or that can be the Magna Carta, the modus operandi of a championship-winning F1 team. I think those two things are. I pitched this to Windsor earlier on, friend of the channel.
Your channel.
True. I almost think those two things are diametrically opposed. That you can't be a fire-breathing dragon of an F1 team and talk the way that Zach Brown talk. It just doesn't make sense, chap. Of course, this was going to happen. If that's how they're speaking, of course, at some point it was going to drip feed down to their performance. Of course, it was, Shez. It was always going to happen at some point, and it's no coincidence that in the dying embers of this season, when a fire-breathing dragon, Maximilian Verstappen, is dialing up the pressure to 12, that all of a sudden these bods have forgotten how to win a race. And I just think, I mean.
But they haven't forgotten how to win a race. This is an ongoing issue, and papaya rules have a problem at both a macro and a micro level. On a macro level, they can't seem to look at the bigger picture in terms of the championship position and go, right, Oscar is absolutely like railroading everybody else. Let's get everything behind him, rather than getting him to swap at Monza or not put him on the optimum strategy at Hungary or whatever. And then on the flip side, on a micro level, and look, just for the avoidance of doubt, they could have done the same thing for Lando when he's in the ascendancy. But even on a micro level, when you're looking at an individual race, they are so scared of looking unfair that they throw away individual race results, which have direct championship consequences and go completely against what they're actually trying to do. I've heard so many people say, look, if McLaren win a championship, a Drivers' World Championship, off the back of the fact that they have kept this harmony, then they've done something unheard of in the annals of Formula One. That's great. Look, I'm so happy that you've managed to keep your drivers loving each other and hugging each other in press conferences. But what is the point when, with the car that you had that won the Constructors' Championship with 6 races to spare, you've allowed the championship to come down to the wire in Abu Dhabi and invoke the doomsday scenario that just shouldn't happen?
It's unacceptable, chap. No, it's unacceptable, chap. I am struggling to square this round shape or whatever the phrase. I can't reconcile myself with this amount of nonsense. I tell you what, the worst thing is, Shez. The very thing is the point I was going to make earlier. The very thing that Zach Brown so craves, which is acceptance and adoration of the masses and the fans, by being so bloody micromanagey as far as all the X factors that so constitute the weird and wacky world that is F1 racing. By being so bloody, by circling the wagons around the PR machine that is McLaren, by being so fastidious about that, all they've done, mate, is cheese off all of the neutrals. Max Verstappen, when he came out to the bloody drivers' parade for the Qatar Grand Prix, got the biggest pop of any driver. They were singing the song. Everybody and their dog, every man and their dog wants Max Verstappen to nobble Lando Norris. Nobody, other than McLaren fans, everybody else is like Max Verstappen has never had so many fans all over the world. Of course, because of how good he's been erstwhile this season and previous, but in no small part due to the way that McLaren have conducted their activities, chap. It's not on the exact thing
100%.
that Zach Brown wants to keep. Fandom, adoration, goodwill is what is eroded by dint of his nonsense and his bloody. It's chaos, chap. This isn't Formula One, chap. This is kumbaya, philanthropic.
Yeah, I agree,
GP.
and it definitely shouldn't be. And I think that the issue that McLaren have got is that they were just surprised by the fact that Oscar was as good as he was in the first 2/3 of this season, and they weren't expecting it. I think they would have had a much, much calmer season if he'd been a step behind Lando the entire year. But I'm not entirely sure Lando was up to it either, and Qatar has kind of confirmed that for me. And I think that's a at least moderately good segue into talking about the other corner of this love triangle, and that is Max Verstappen. Max made it quite clear that he thinks that Red Bull and himself are in the position they are in this championship because of the mistakes of others, right? And by others, I can only assume he's talking about McLaren and its drivers. I've had a lot of people say that in the pressure situations, when it comes to being able to just put everything else aside and just focus on what needs to be done, and even if that means intimidating your competitors, Max is able to do that because he is a 4-time world champion. Do you think that's the reason, or is it an inherent thing that he has that the McLaren drivers don't?
It sounds like you were leading to your subject matter expertise. Shez, are we having a nurture versus nature conversation so early on into this discussion, chap?
No.
Is that where you're leading?
Okay, I'm going to put it to you this way, right? So let's say we have 2021 Max Verstappen versus Lando and Oscar in the car that they have right now. Does Max behave any differently?
I think he's more mature now than he was in 2021. You can see him. There's almost like a calm serial killer demeanor to him now. It's like
sociopath.
Like all right. It's like when he says I don't care. I get hair. My hairs on the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. Shez, I'm like, what? Like how? Where is his Achilles heel? Lando's going to be getting no sleep between now and Abu Dhabi. Like I just don't. Like, how do you get? You're going to need. Listen, we said it for the longest time, Shez, to beat Maximilian Verstappen in 2025. You're going to need stuff. You're going to need a quicker car, which they do have, but I think you're going to need fortuitous circumstances. You're going to need everything to go your way, even if you do have 12 points in hand. I think you're just going to need. You're going to need for the racing gods to be smiling at you if you Lando nice. Everything's going to need to be going right. Because the second that Lando puts a foot, I know I'm not answering your question here, but the second that Lando puts a foot wrong, all of a sudden it's going to be like the walls of Hades closing in on him. It's going to get techier than techie things.
But they didn't need that, did they, this weekend? I do want you to answer my question, but they didn't need a stroke of luck. They needed to qualify first and second, and they did. And Lando needed to not be scared off the road.
No, well, they needed everything to go right. The second that Lando qualifies on the dirty side of the grid, it's done for him, chap. Even if he's on the clean side next to Max Verstappen, 9 times out of 10, he's going to get nubbled, chap. I think Max looks on, when you look at an opponent, Shez, and you just know that you've got their number.
But this is it.
I need to show up today and just do what I've always done. I saw the way that Max nailed him into turn one, and that wasn't so telling. It was on the ensuing set of corners. I want to say it's turn three, turn four, but the way Max Verstappen pinned Lando Norris to the inside and then did exactly what Lando should have done in Las Vegas with millimeter precision is that there is no more damning indictment of the delta, not in terms of lap time between Max and Lando, but in terms of the their fluency, their racecraft fluency. Max Verstappen is just versus Lando in particular. Oscar's a different thing, another conversation for another day. But versus Lando, lap one as well, when Lando hasn't had his Weetabix and yet to get limbered up, and I just think Max is like, this is just give me that.
But I would argue that Max with no championships under his belt would think the same way about Lando that he does right now. I don't think there's any difference, and I don't think that's a matter of having championships in the bank. That's just a psychological advantage that he has over who he sees as a lesser driver. I mean, just look at the facts. Like, what driver would say they're happy to have another guy in their team if it isn't because they think that they've got their number and would absolutely wallop them? That's the only reason I can think of that Red Bull were happy to have Lando Norris in their team in 2024. That's why they came looking for him, right? And when he's talking and he's so brazenly out there saying, I would have dominated in that car, that can only be pointed at one driver, really. And it was that driver that tried to clap back at him and was struck down very quickly.
Why does Lando even play them games with Max Verstappen? It doesn't even make any sense. Do you want to win, Lando, or do you want to lose? Because right now, you know what, Shez, let me not even, I don't want to go scorched off on his channel, but it is frustrating. You originally question the variance between Max in 2025 as versus the 21 iteration of him. If you're talking about, if we have this conversation under the aegis of Max versus Lando is quick enough he's just quick enough to be dangerous to Max Verstappen. But what Lando lacks, in particular, if we're going to zone in on something that will always, or for now, has been very different. It's not just his racecraft; it's his racecraft early on in the race. That's where he just doesn't. He doesn't lock in until like the second and third of the race. It's like the first third. It's like Max is like, that's mine, and what are you saying? That's your lunch money, Lando? No, mate. That's my lunch money, and I'm taking it. That's what Max Verstappen said. If you just watch only the first 5 or 6 turns, Shez, because Lando tries to have a go back at him, doesn't he? Into like, I want to say it's turn 3, turn 4. I can't remember which, but the way that Max Verstappen just deals with him, the level of almost forensic precision. It's almost like it's the mirror image of Las Vegas into turn one. But Max is saying Max is saying quite explicitly by dint of his posture and the way he makes the defensive move that this is how you do it, mate. You're telling me, Lando, that I was talking nonsense, that I wouldn't have been able to win a championship in a McLaren MCL 39 ages ago. Well, put this in your pipe and smoke it, mate. This is proof positive that it would have been easy for Max Verstappen, and that maneuver tells you all you need to know about how true or false that statement is.
Yeah, and that I think that boils it right down, doesn't it? That I think all of the posturing that Lando has put on over the last couple of races, this sort of relaxed, we didn't win the championship. There's a marked difference between the way you hear Max's nonchalance and you hear Lando's attempt at the same thing. Max, there's a steely sort of determination that you see in Max that doesn't come across in the words of his answers, but when you hear him talk to his team, and you hear the subject matter that he is talking about versus what Lando is talking about to his team, you let Alex Albon through, mate. And the response being, yeah, sorry, my bad.
I'm trying, Will. I'm trying.
It's, I need some help in turn 7. Like like the bit that should be easy for you, you are still having to try and work out. And look, he's had some good races. Don't get me wrong, right? Mexico, Brazil, Vegas, even until the first corner of the first lap, really good. But as soon as a little bit of trouble is thrown back into the mix, he's not quite the fastest driver there. He has to work on the nitty gritty of actually, navigating a Formula One car around a circuit, and everything else starts to fall apart. The outside influences start to come in, and it just becomes fodder for somebody like Max. And look, I know I've come in for a lot of stick from my audience about how highly I regard Oscar, but I think Oscar, when he has the stuff underneath him to do what he wants to do, nothing else gets in his way. Right? It doesn't matter whether it's Max or anyone else, and it's just laser focus.
Or Baku or Singapore.
Even those races, yeah. Yeah.
I would say, look, I'd say this about Lando. I just, not to bury the lead, but I think there is a line of least resistance for Lando. There were certain games with Max Verstappen that Lando just shouldn't play. The second that I heard him engaging in Max Verstappen's or trying desperately to answer back, talking about Max Verstappen talks nonsense. There are a lot of things about which Max Verstappen knows, but there are also a lot of things that Max Verstappen doesn't know about. I was like, what? Mate, this is, you just know the second that those words come out of his mouth and he starts peacocking, you've taken your eye off the ball, Lando Norris. You you should not be playing those games with Max Verstappen. Because it's the bandwidth thing, isn't it, Shez? Max can afford to do that because when he gets in the car, lap one, the formation lap, he's locked in. There is nothing else on this dude's mind. He doesn't need. There is no there is nothing that he doesn't need to warm up. He doesn't need to do the Pierre Gasly and start juggling balls on the bloody grid or anything stupid like that. He's locked in. He's been there, to your nurture point. He's been there 1,000 gazillion times. It's muscle memory by now. So as soon as he gets off the line, he's there, chap. He's on it 1,000%. There is no, like with FP1 and any other racing session ever, Max Verstappen needs no warm-up. So Lando Norris needs to make sure, as well as the mental fortitude, which I think is improved, and some of the technical bits about the launch and whatever else, he needs to make sure that there is no warm-up phase. He hasn't got 3 laps with Max Verstappen around these tracks that are so bloody difficult, damn near impossible to overtake. That you've got to overweight the importance of the start. And to do that, you're not Max Verstappen. So therefore, you should not be bantering. There's a brilliant phrase on the wire recall where the chief detective's wife says, "You can't lose if you don't play the game." So therefore, Lando, don't play these games with Max Verstappen. You want to win. Your objective here is to win a drivers' championship, and that's not the way you win one. Playing games with Max Verstappen that only bloody that only fuel. It's like spinach to Popeye for Max Verstappen. Why are you giving him more ammunition? It just makes no sense.
Well, I mean that's definitely where the nurture comes into it, because I think Max has lived that level of intimidation his entire life. He just knows how to deal with it because he's been in it since he was a little boy. Just fast forwarding now to next weekend, we are going to come in for that doomsday situation. There is a championship on the line. There are 3 drivers going up for it. Has how Qatar played out changed what you think is going to happen and who you think is most likely to come out on top?
You don't bet against Max Verstappen these days, chap. Even if he's a rank outsider. I looked at the odds earlier on, and the bookmakers give Lando Norris run the simulation of the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix 100 times, and the bookmakers say that Lando Norris will win 72 of those 100. He's a humongous favourite by dint of his 12-point lead in the championship. Listen, if he jumps out the box and he's ready to go, then Lando Norris has the championship right there in his hands. It's his. lose, but I don't try, and it should be good around Abu Dhabi. The track circumstance suits Lando. It's got loads of short corners around that, like it's or corners at the very least of medium duration, and that are low to medium speed. Like it suits Lando, doesn't it? But mate, I I um I don't like his chances. I just don't. I can't. You want me to be honest with you, Shez? I lost money at the altar of Lando Norris once already this year, and I can't do it again. Fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Chap, I can't. I don't trust Lando. I don't think he's dependable. He's a brilliant bloody driver. This isn't what I'm saying. Of course, he's rapid, he's fast. Anywhere after lap 3 or 4, he's got racecraft for days when he's ready. Like, but I just don't. I think the margins for error are very fine around here, and sometimes, per the legend that is the immortal Mo Walker, sometimes in F1, strange things can and usually do happen. Mate, stranger things have already happened in a not too distant past, right? So, I don't know, chap. My crystal ball is as murky as the next person's, but what I won't do is bet against Maximilian Verstappen, goat so metronomic as that chap been
But
this year.
you do think it's a binary choice now between Lando and Max?
What's Oscar? 16 points adrift. I had it written down.
16.
Earlier.
Yeah, he's on 392.
What's he going to have to do? So go on then. If for Max to win, Max would need to win, and Lando finished lower than fourth.
Third.
Yeah, 4 lower.
Yeah.
And for Oscar to win, therefore, he'd have to win, and Lando would need to finish 5th or lower. Yeah, mate, that's a tall order.
It's too much, isn't it? Yeah, I think you're probably right. But again, Abu Dhabi is another place where it's really tough to overtake. I think Oscar's thing, and you said this on the last little live stream that we did, was that he probably in the situations where he should just say no, or when he should push for something that is really obvious, he doesn't do it because he doesn't want to rock the boat. I feel like I take the point that he should be a bit more forward in terms of asking for what he wants. I think he wasn't forward enough in asking for what he wanted just in the car, but also in situations where he was asked to move over or not attack, he sort of stepped back. And I do wonder if a lot of that is because he doesn't think or is worried that he would be cast adrift by McLaren, would never get the chance to be in a car like that again. But that's really what he needs to do. I think that's the only major chink in his armor, really, that he doesn't. He plays the team game at a point when he shouldn't. That's cost him in the latter third of the season. It definitely will in Abu Dhabi again if he lets it happen.
He's got to stop being so nice, mate. Correction. I've just fact checked what I've said. Lando would need to finish 6th or lower. That's a lot, mate. So Lando basically would have to DNF. I don't see him finish it if he does what he's supposed to do. But then you say this about Lando, and then look where he finished. Mate, you just can't.
I know.
You can't legislate for this level of underperformance, nor can you forecast for it, Shez. I don't know. Of course, Lando Norris is the favourite. Should he be as big a favourite as 72% of the time? I think that's a bit punchy, mate. I think I'd trend that more towards 65 or 60% of the time. Of course, he's still favourite with 12 points in his hands, but I just think shades of things, mate. I don't know how many times. You know what? I give you this example, Shez. As we were streaming quali, I know that Max Verstappen doesn't have a car. That the RB21 isn't as quick around the sail as is the McLaren MCL39. I know this. I just know it.
It's very obvious.
Max, it is. It's super obvious. It's clear blue. But then you'll recall, Shez, in the dying embers of Q3, what does Max go and do on his final lap? The sector one just flashes up purple. And I'm already like, okay, so I know what's going on here. I've read this book. I've seen this story a gazillion times this season. Max Verstappen is going to go and do something that is as near as makes no difference. Impossible. He's gonna bend the space time continuum yet again, and outperform the McLarens because they're going to make mistakes. I just expected him to put it on pole trap, and that's not dissimilar to what I expect from Abu Dhabi. If there is any wiggle, if there is an angle, if there is a chance, I think Max Verstappen will slip in, and I can't bet against McLaren opening up that opportunity door again for Maximilian Verstappen to force him so soon to be
Oh
five-time
yeah,
champion.
well, therein lies the rub, and it's what Max has said directly, isn't it? That we're not in this position other than because of the mistakes, failures.
So gangster.
I love that.
Such
I
a
love the use
gangster
of
thing to
that
say.
word as well. It wasn't mistakes; it was failures
Such a
of others.
gangster thing to say.
Because I think he's recognizing that this entire papaya nonsense is a failure, and it is allowing.
He did say failures.
Yeah, it's allowing a driver like him to come in and like it just doesn't make mistakes other than one, which he's admitted to. And just imagine where we would be if it wasn't for Barcelona. Is that is that something that he's going to have learned from? Does he change in a similar situation? He made excuses for it, not excuses, but he tried to explain it away. And he has done a couple of times now. Look, I was angry. We'd messed up a pit stop. Charles Leclerc tried to take me out. George Russell then tried to take me out. I got a penalty, and I saw the red mist. That's what he said. Does he learn from that? Does he hold it in a bit more? Is this calm that he displays outside the car, is that going to translate into in the car when he's up against a George Russell in the future?
To an extent. I think he has learned from. I think he's more. We spoke to it already, didn't we, Shez? I think he's more mature than he has been in previous seasons. I mean, he'll do whatever it takes to win. There are no lengths to which Max Verstappen will not go to secure and crystallise even so much as a millisecond worth of advantage. And sadly for him, his Achilles heel in recent years has been a penchant for hot-headedness. He's always got it, but then some would argue, if you're going to play the flip side for a second, Shez, that hot-headedness is him. That the god tier laps around Saudi Arabia and the British Grand Prix quali, so too Suzuka, that they can't happen without that. So you can't separate that fire from Maximilian Verstappen as an F1 peddler. You don't want to. Some would argue that that's what's happened to Lewis over the last couple of years, right? That something happens as you get older, that fire just dims and risk management becomes a thing. So you don't want to put out that flame. You almost want to just redirect it, time and a play. And I think that's what GP's job is almost, right? I think Max will lose his head sometimes when he feels aggrieved and there's a perceived injustice. And because going back to the Barcelona instance, it was chaos, right? Wrong set of tyres they put him on, probably, depending on who you talk to. And then Charles gets a bit cheeky on the straight, fuming, nothing doing. The stewards don't even bloody investigate it. And then shortly thereafterwards, going into the first bloody turn, George Russell gets a bit techie. And then what do the stewards do? They, well, nothing doing. No, what George did was fair. Well, I'll show you fair. I get it. I understand it. Now, he shouldn't have done it. But to your question, Shez, I think he's learned from. I think he's more mature. I think he's learned from it to an extent. But would I do, between now and the end of Max Verstappen's career? Do I think that there will be zero instances similar? No. Max Verstappen, injustice isn't something that Max deals well with.
I mean, I think the question is, do you want there to be no more incidents? I mean, yes, the exam answer is definitely no. Of course, you don't want to see any more incidences like that. But yeah, it is part and parcel. I don't think of his qualifying. I think the qualifying is just a level of magic that comes from how he rotates the car. That's just something that's been built up over years, but on track in a race situation, his awareness and the way he places the car, how he knows what to do in every single situation, no matter what. when things don't go to plan, when things don't go the way he thinks they should, given how he feels he's done everything right, that's when I think things start to bubble over a bit. And I get it, and I don't hate it as much as I did a few years ago.
Wow, imagine as a chap that wasn't a big fan of Michael Schumacher back in the day. Um, I've done a massive 180. I think that you make a point there, Shez, that you know what though, chap, it's not. I don't want to do the D1 level Maximilian Verstappen glaze, but I think it's broader than just his pace. It's not just
I
his
agree. It's
pace.
not just his pace, but that's what
No,
everything has to be built on, right? Like there's no point being a Formula One driver and having incredible racecraft if you're 4 seconds off the pace. It doesn't work, does it? So to everything that Max is renowned for, all of it is built off the fact that he is just the fastest thing on 4 wheels.
But you know what, Shez? Didn't you hear him the other day say, you know what, there were fast F1 drivers are a dime a dozen. Did you hear him talk about this? I don't even know what interview I was watching, where he said that they're all like, if we were all doing like a testing session, then any one of us could put it on purple. But it's not that differentiates these drivers. That's not the difference between the good and the great. It's the bandwidth. It's the, like you said, the ability to manipulate the car in and on around the limits of adhesion. That's another one. It's the ability to lock in and have this extra bandwidth. It's the ability to draw out of yourself the best in the clutch, the clutch moments. It's all these things that separates him. And then as far as the qualifying, mate, you know, I think he just has this. You saw it in Brazil, didn't you? When the Oscar Piastri yeeted it in the barrier and whoever else did, and then Max Verstappen goes through. Correct. So,
so good. So good.
You can't even. The evidence is loud that this dude, but Mr. Windsor said it best, right? That whilst the others are painting with primary colours, Max almost has an infinite automotive palette. Like he paints with oils and waters, and it's different. Chap. His safety net is wider.
But do you think that difference is more marked in a season like this when he's up against someone like Lando, who? And I do mean Lando because I feel like Oscar just has that bandwidth. He doesn't have the pace necessarily, quite of a Lando or a Max, but the overall bandwidth and racecraft is there. But do you think it's a bit more marked in a season like this where Lando is having to concentrate so much more on just the nitty gritty of how to get around a racetrack, versus if he's up against like a George Russell or a Charles Leclerc up for a championship, and actually their bandwidth is much wider than what Lando's is. So he doesn't have the ability to concentrate quite so much on the other side of things because he is having to concentrate a bit more on what's happening on track.
Oh, 1000%, brother. Of course it does. That's why I'm saying you've just nailed it, right? That's the root cause of what I'm saying around don't play these games with Max Verstappen. You don't have the breadth or depth of Lando, especially how he struggles with mental fortitude and all these other things, and social media, and bloody the starts don't work, and he takes 3 or 4 laps to play his way into the crease and all this stuff. Lando doesn't have not even 1 millimeter of bandwidth to spare. So when you're getting involved in these bandwidth consuming games with who? With Max Verstappen, who has unlimited bandwidth with which to play. Does that make sense to you?
It totally does. But I feel like Lando would therefore crumple in the face of anyone else on the grid that has any semblance more bandwidth than he does. He did to Oscar for a big chunk of this season, and I think if you put George or Charles in that car opposite him, I think the same thing happens.
No, but perhaps.
In fact, when you talk about George, it has happened already in F2. Both of them rookies in F2 that season. Lando really should have won, but there was George, come through the middle, last race, wins it.
But to be fair to Lando, that year he was an embryo, mate. He was a lot younger than George. Do you know what I mean? And a lot more. He was right in the formative, or much more so in the formative stages of his career. If I'm making excuses,
we're going to make some excuses, but
Lando versus Lando might be able to. Okay, look, if there's one driver on the grid that you don't play those bandwidth consuming games with, he has a name, and his name is Maximilian Verstappen. That's the start and the finish of this. Maybe you might want to play those with George in the heat of battle, and it might have an might have a different outcome. There might be advantage in there for Lando because he might be a bit more banterous, and George doesn't quite like that. You don't know. I was looking at the interaction between Lando and George, trying to suss that out when George was like, "Well, they said that you said that I ruined your lap," and then Nando was like, "Well, as you believe the media, I don't know, they're friends, and there's a different dynamic between them." But that stuff, if you point that stuff at Max Verstappen, there is only going to be one loser. You're not going to impact him to where he's going to like do anything stupid. I just don't think he's get atable like that. So I just don't see if I'm Lando and I get pitched that question about, oh, Max Verstappen said that. Just say it would have been a one-word rebuttal for me, probably. He might be right. Let's have a chat after Abu Dhabi. Like done. There wouldn't be any long, protracted answer because I can't, as Lando Norris, I can't afford to play these bandwidth consumption games. I just can't because it's drivers' championship. He's already threadbare in terms of his CPU that he's got disposable, and I don't think it's smart. I don't think it's smart
No,
from him.
I agree. And just to square the circle, as it were, these are the conversations that I think we are going to be having next season when there are a few more drivers in the mix. Huh. Cameron, thank you so much for your time. It's been a pleasure, as always. I just don't have a thesaurus big enough to compete with you, but sometimes I try. Where can everyone find you, as if they need to know?
I don't know, Shez. I don't know.
Come on.
I'm on the YouTube somewhere. I can't remember the name of the channel. It's far too late, mate. All I will say though, if you're not subscribed to Tire GP already, then hit the subscribe, like, share with an F1 fan friend or two. Now, please. It's important. It is important. That's all that I'll say, mate. Full stop, new paragraph.
So embarrassed, but if he won't say it himself, CameronCc on YouTube. Is it CameronCxc on Twitter?
It's CameronC. I don't know, mate. I think it's CameronCc, but with an X instead of an A.
Hey, yeah, there you go. You'll find him, and on, I presume, no, I don't just presume, on whatever podcasting platform you use, please go find Cameron. It is literally market leading stuff, not to steal a phrase. As usual, please like, please subscribe, please leave us a comment, and we'll read every single one and we'll reply to as many as we possibly can. We'll see you guys in the next one.